watching News 8.
CPA Dave Young is back with us this morning. Dave, it's always good to see you.
Oh, it's great to be here.
Lots to get to. It's the middle of the year. We're going to talk about mid-year tax planning, and in this year in particular, we got to look back to the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 because that's going to have a big impact about how we tax plan this year, right?
That's right. So all of those rules are in place now, today in 2018. So some of the changes that you want to think about, you're going to have an increase in your standard deduction. So it's going to go up if you're married filing joint to $24,000, which is a big jump. But there's some drawbacks too. You'll lose your personal exemptions for yourself, your spouse, your kids. The tax credit for the kids will double, and the threshold will go up to $400,000 if you're married filing joint. So that sort of gives you an idea. One of the big changes that affects people here in this area is the state and local income tax is capped at $10,000. So that's something to keep in mind as we do some tax planning.
Right. We'll talk about that here as we go along this morning. Let's talk about some of the ideas we should put into effect going forward as a result of this new law. And first we're going to start with sort of bunching some expenses, right?
That's right. Bunching is an easy idea. So what you'll do is you'll keep all of your, say, charitable contributions or medical and try to put them all in 1 year and maybe rotate every 1 year or 2 years depending on your personal situation. So that way 1 year you'll take a standard deduction and next year you'll itemize. That's what we're talking about with bunching.
Okay, I see how that works. Charitable contributions.
It's always in play. One of the nice little things here is if you have appreciated, say, stock, you can give that stock as long as you held it for 12 months to a charity. You're not going to have to pay the capital gain and you get the tax deduction at the same time.
All right, that's good to know. You've got paying off your mortgage here.
It's one of the things to think about is now that effectively the interest rate on your mortgage went up because it's not a deduction anymore, potentially, depending if you're taking a standard deduction. So you might want to say, hey, maybe it's worth paying this thing off.
Yeah, if you've got the money laying around. And let's get to the state and local taxes here, because this is a key point now.
There's a couple of key points. So now with the federal capping the state and local income tax at $10,000, New York State has decoupled. So if you have high real estate taxes, you will be able to take those real estate taxes as a deduction on your New York State return, because New York historically said if you took a standard on the federal, you have to take a standard on the state. Now that's changed. You can take a standard on the federal and itemize on the state. That's a key point.
All right, so that's something you should be thinking about here in the middle of the year.
Correct.
Let's finish up with a couple of things. Vacationing and then substance over form. Let's get to both of these. So
let's say you have a second home.
Yeah.
And right now you'll hit the cap. You probably hit the state and local income tax cap. Maybe you consider turning that into a Airbnb type of thing where you're renting it out. Now you can deduct some of those costs. You have to be careful. There's some limitations as the number of days. Substance over form. New York State's come out with an idea where if you make a contribution to a charitable contribution to a New York State set-up fund, they thought, well, maybe the IRS will allow that. Well, the IRS says no, not so fast. So you got to be very careful. That looks like the IRS is wise to that idea, and it may not work. So I would definitely consult your CPA before you go down that road.
Probably the finishing thought right there as well. Lots of changes. Consult the CPA if you're not sure. Couple more items on the list we didn't have time for. We'll add those online as well. Dave, as always, thank you.
Oh, thanks.
More on this, as always, at rochesterfirst.com.